Hi, I'm Paul Vunak. Welcome to the continuing JKD Street Fighting series. This tape is on advanced knife fighting. Hi, I'm Paul Vunak, and welcome to advanced knife fighting. First of all, we call this tape advanced because we're going to teach drills that we've not shown before. It is the drills that make a knife fighter. It is not the techniques. This is the first thing we have to understand. Never has there been a subject taught by so many who know so little. I see in books, I see in magazines, instructors will have you blocking a knife, having you try to disarm the knife out of midair. This is suicide. This is irresponsible. You cannot fight a knife. Get a large industrial magic marker and put it in the hand of a 12-year-old child and let her just flail at you. And you'll have lines up your groin, across your eyelids. And you're going to try to do some technique against a razor, against a man in an alley pissed off at you. So we need to understand the realities of the knife. And what we're going to do is just delineate the points to you that are most important in a knife fight. So hang with me. Now, to talk about myth number one. Trying to block a knife. Bob. Any block that Bob does, if he successfully makes the block, if I just pull away, he's cut anywhere I'm at. If I come in here, boom, boom, that's it. If I'm just looking this way and I turn around, what'd you say? The guy's cut. You can't give the limb and try to block. This was taught many, many years ago against people trying to take a knife and stick it through armor. So at that point, the thrusting of the knife, it was locked out and it was thrusted the same way they were punching in those days. People nowadays do not thrust a knife. Every technique I've ever seen in any book, any magazine, or any video has been predicated on the fact that the knife is thrusting at you and it is locked out. When you're in a knife fight, boom, a kid's just going to take a knife and flail it. It's going to retract quick like a fast jab. So you need the attributes to deal with that. You need the footwork, you need the line familiarization, you need the timing. And these things aren't just going to come, they need to come through the proper drills. So this is why we call this tape advanced knife fighting, because we're going to delineate each one of these drills for you. So before we do this, I want to talk about range. Okay, Bob, grab a knife. First thing we do is we discuss the three different ranges of knife fighting. Bob, you lock your knife out. His knife cannot reach my face, but my knife can reach his hand. This is called largo mano range, or long hand range. This is the most important range you need to know about. That is, every time he comes in to you, you're just backing up and cutting the hand. You're using this knife to, as the Filipinos would say, defang the snake. As opposed to the knife coming in and me using a passive hand, stay right there, and then I'm trying to come in and do something else. We've got a slight structural flaw here. So the point that we're trying to make is if you're going to defang the snake, you need to do this on the first beat. So in largo mano range, when this man comes in, you're just backing out and cutting. Every time he comes in at any angle, you're backing out and cutting. I do not need this hand because it's not in the way, so we just keep this hand right here. And we're backing out and using this knife to cut the opponent's knife hand. Now the next range that we come in from largo mano range is called sombrado range, where the knife can touch you. So if he comes with an angle 1 and I try to block this, but for some reason on my cut I miss, well, I'm going to get cut. So this is why we employ the checking hand. So as soon as Bob comes in, boom, that's where the check comes in. Any angle he comes, you have this hand to check. This is the checking hand. If we don't use this checking hand, again, if I miss here, I'm going to catch it. But if we try to put the checking hand in out in largo mano range, you can end up getting your hand cut. So that's the first thing we have to understand, is a delineation of the two ranges, largo mano to sombrado. And now there's just one last range, and that is your clinch range. This is a range where a headbutt could come in, a knee, an elbow. This is called hubud range. So this is hubud, right from here. This is sombrado range. Just flow with me a little bit. This is sombrado range, and we're going to go through all these different blocks with you. And this is largo mano range when we're out in this, boom, just moving around like two kickboxers. So this is the point. We need to know all three ranges. So hang in with me and take some notes on this. Before we get into the meat of this tape, I want to cover myth number 2, and that is, how do you hold a knife? I've seen entire books on how to hold a knife. That's absurd. The only thing that counts is timing, footwork, spatial relationship, coordination, and heart when you're in a knife fight. If your thumb is here or if your thumb is here, that is the least important thing. If it's a 4-inch knife or a 6-inch knife or an 8-inch knife, this is not important. We're focusing on the wrong things. You'll hear people say, well, you really know if a guy knows how to fight with a knife because he'll carry it like this. That's absurd. Carrying a knife like this, the only possible advantage it has is you're hiding the knife, you're concealing it. That's it. Other than that, when you're out moving around with a man, those attributes are still in play. That's like saying you really know if a guy knows how to shoot a gun because he'll have it hidden in his shirt. Makes the same amount of sense. If you drop your knife and you look in this direction and you happen to pick it up and you have it in a false grip, well then use it in this grip. Otherwise, just grab the knife in the most natural way you can and move around. And remember the principles. And the most important principle is that we defang the snake on the first beat. We use our knife to cut our opponent's hand. So this is going to be the very first technique I'm going to show you. We're going to use the terminology block, although it's not a block. It's a cut. And the first block we're going to use is called a roof block. Okay, Joe, let me borrow you. There are 5 angles of attack. This is a 1, this is a 2, this is a 3, this is a 4, and this is a 5. So these are going to be the angles I'm going to be referring to. You can break it down into 12 or 20. For right now, 5 is just fine. Joe comes at me with an angle 1. I'm going to use my knife to touch his hand first. That's the point. That's the most important point. As this comes in, this hand's going to check. So this motion is called a roof block. I'm zoning out on a 45, and I'm cutting his hand on the first beat. Not to be misconstrued with this, which is doing nothing. But when I use the knife, boom. Now, why am I using my left hand? Because it is the checking hand, because we're in sombrato range. Joe was coming in deep enough in which I needed my left hand. Had I have not used it, the knife could have thrusted to my neck. So the first move I want you to practice at home is you take your angle 1, feed it, and your partner just step out on a 45, raise your knife, and kind of stretch. And we call this a roof block. Okay? Let's play with that. Now, moving along, we just defended the angle 1 with the roof block. Okay, Joe? Joe comes in with the angle 1. I zone out, I cut, and I check all at the same time. Now, at this point of the game, the fight would be over. I'm cutting his wrist, and then I'm just going to follow up from there. But for the purpose of the flow, when Joe comes in, I'm going to cut it, and we're going to pretend like that didn't happen. Then I'm going to come back to Joe, and I'm going to feed. What we just did there is called an inside sweep. Okay, Joe, let me get you on this side. An inside sweep action, real slow. The knife comes across once, and then this hand checks. We're arming right here. So watch the body mechanics. This is an inside sweep. The first thing we did was a roof block. The second move was an inside sweep. Now we're just going to take turns on this. So he comes in 1, I go roof, I come in 1, he goes inside sweep. Now we're starting to establish a flow. So let's get that far. An angle 1 for an angle 1. Now to continue with our pattern, Di, let me borrow you. Di's going to come in with angle 1. I come with my roof block. I come back with an angle 1. She does an inside sweep. Now this is an angle 4. This is a horizontal backhand right across the stomach. Let's look at that again. A 1, for a 1, and then for a 4. But I'm going to bring my knife down, and I'm going to cut here. Notice again, each motion, the knife is cutting first and the checking hand is coming after the knife. These are the important points. So now we have three motions. A roof block to an inside sweep to a drop stick or a cross block. Let's see it one more time. So we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, again. 1, 2, and 3. Let's get you over here at this angle. Do the same thing again. Okay, coming in, roof block, inside sweep to a cross block. Just follow our body mechanics. Okay? Good. All right, let's try it. Now, moving along, we've got all the way up to the angle 4, and that brings out a cross block with me. The next thing I'm going to do is feed an angle 5. Trevor here is going to do a wing block. Okay, start from the 1. We have a roof block to an inside sweep to a cross block. Now I shoot the angle 5 from here. That's his wing block. Again, cutting on the first motion. What we're trying to do here is establish a momentum pattern back and forth to where we're starting to flow. And then from this sumbrata pattern, we're going to break the pattern. And both parties are just going to be moving, checking, and cutting, and you're not going to know what angle is coming in. From the periphery, it looks like we'll have people from the audience saying, geez, these guys have a great memory. There's no memorization. It's just a question of flowing. It's a question of having the correct line familiarization to where any line that comes in, we cut it on the first beat. And after doing this many, many years, you develop the reflexes and the body mechanics that will translate into a knife fighter in the final analysis. All right, let's look at it again. Trevor, angle 1, roof block for an inside sweep, for a cross block to a wing block. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all we're trying to do is get the mechanics. Now don't look at the knife this time, but look at the body. One more time, Trev. I'm zoning out, zoning in, cutting, boom. It's all in the body mechanics. Now I want you to look at our checking hand. Every time the knife touches the hand, our check touches his hand because we're close enough to cut. Trevor, see my check? Look at his check. Look at my left hand check. Look at his right hand check. So we're going to go back and forth with that. All right, let's try it. Now our last angle of attack was the angle 5, and we did a wing block. This is going to precipitate the angle 2, and I'm going to come up with a shield, and now we're going to repeat the whole pattern again. Okay, Ernie. Ernie comes with angle 1. I go roof block, inside sweep, cross block. He goes wing block. Now he's going to come with the angle 2. Right at this point, let's start from the top again. Right at this point, freeze right here, come in. I just raise this up. This is called a shield. Okay, so let's look at that again. Wing block, and boom, I'm coming straight up. This is the most economical thing I can do at this point. 1, 2. Now I'm going to initiate the angle 1. Ernie's going to go roof block. He'll initiate the 1. I go inside sweep. I come 4. He goes cross block. He comes angle 5. I go wing. He goes shield. And now we start over again. And all we do is we keep repeating this pattern until the line familiarization is down and the body mechanics are down. And this has accommodated one of our crucial ranges of fighting, Sombrado range. From here, we're going to take you out to Largo Mono range and into Hubud range. And if you have all the different lines of attack on all the different ranges, the body mechanics covered, and the reflexes covered, now we can begin. All right, let's try it. Now that we've worked our different angles in Sombrado range, we're going to pull out to the next range, which is Largo Mono. Okay, Dion, just extend your knife, Dion. Again, Largo Mono range means that I can reach his hand, but his knife cannot reach my head. So for him to feed me on the drills, he's going to feed the angles 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But each time he comes in, I'm going to back up so I can maintain Largo Mono range. So the knife will be whizzing by my face, but it would not be able to hit me. Therefore, I'm not going to use my checking hand, and you're just going to see my left hand on my chest. All right, D. So this is angle 1, boom. Notice I keep backing up to keep Largo Mono range. Now I'm going to feed the angles 1 through 5. Now if I don't back up, here, well, now look where the knife is. That's when I'd have to have this hand in for checking hand, which would put us into Sombrado. And that's a completely different drill that we already know. And you notice we're using our left hand each time to check. But when we're out in Largo Mono range, he doesn't need his left hand, freeze, D, because I can't reach his face. So what I'd like you to do is go back and forth, feeding the angles 1 through 5, and slowly just cut the hand on each angle. Okay, D, one more time, real slow. A 1 for a 1, a 2 for a 2, a 3 for a 3, a 4 for a 4, and a 3 for a 5. Then I feed. Okay, let's just work these drills back and forth. Now what we just saw was Largo Mono range. Largo Mono range is my knife cannot reach Dion's face, but Dion's knife can reach my hand. This is out in long range. If he moves in just a tad, this puts us in Sombrata range. This is the pattern that we just worked. Notice when we're in Sombrata range, we're putting our checking hand in each time. Well, if I go in one more step, this puts us in Hubud range. Hubud range from here, you're raising, you're slapping, and you're hitting. We're feeding the angle 1 back and forth. This is giving us sensitivity and feeling. If he sees the angle 2 coming, he stops at that line, and we just go back out again. Anytime I feed the angles, I change it, we go back to Hubud. If I want to go to Sombrata here, I just start feeding, and we're back to Sombrata. Then we just back off a little bit, and we're out in long range again, where I'm feeding. So this accommodates all the ranges, from Largo Mono to Sombrata to Hubud. And we go back and forth with this. Now you try it. Now what you just saw was Dion and myself going in and out of different ranges. We were in Largo Mono range, we broke into Sombrata range, we broke into Hubud. This is one of the most important points in a street fight with a knife. You need to sense what range you're in. If you're in a range where you can elbow, you sense that. If you're in the range where you need to have that checking hand, you have to feel that. If you're out in Largo Mono range, you got a sense to get that hand out of the way. So this is the most important thing, is the development of these attributes through these ranges. I'd like you to just take a look at the guys, watch what they're doing. Just make a notation at home when you see them breaking in. When you see the different, there'll be a nonverbal cue. All of a sudden they'll be in Largo Mono and you'll see them break into Sombrata and put the check in. Then all of a sudden they'll be in Hubud. And look for these nonverbal cues and try to work those at home. All right, fellas, you ready? Get your partner and begin. out long range and spar. Break into sombrero. Bud. Now let's pause for a moment. We're about halfway through our tape, and let's just cover some important points. The longest range we have is largo mono range. This is a range where we have one side feeding and one side is continually stepping back and cutting the limb. What is this developing in the street fight? This is developing line familiarization. This is developing the ability to keep your checking hand out of the way until you need it. Then when you see them going from largo mono range and breaking into where they're using their left hand to check, that means they were close enough that the knives could cut each other's face. So that is the safety catch, the checking hand, the rear hand, or the alive hand. Filipinos will call this the most important hand. So all of a sudden when you see that hand come into play, you know you're in sombrado range. When we raise and slap and hit, we kick into hubud. This cues us automatically that the elbows, the headbutts, the arm wrenches, and the knees are automatically in play. Now, if you noticed in our trapping tape, we were using the same terminology. Sombrada, largo mono range, hubud. The reason is these are training methods, and they're proven training methods, and they bring out attributes, and they're applicable regardless if it's empty hands, knife fighting, single knife, or double knife. And now this is what we're going to show you is double knife fighting, where you have one side with a long and a short, and he is feeding the other person. This drill is called numerada, and this will teach us line familiarization, footwork, coordination, and spatial relationship. And that'll translate directly again to the street fight, to the knife fight. So we're going to have one side feeding. I'm going to be on the conga, and I want you to notice the perpetual zoning and footwork. Okay, fellas, come on in. All right, Dion, you feed first. Dave, you just do your thing. All right, ready? And go. Sombrada. Hubud. And break. All right, now what this just illustrated was the breaking in from long range to sombrada to hubud, then changing from one side feeding to the other. This covered about every possible attribute you could need in a street fight with a knife. And notice the very least thing we've talked about is technique. And if you pick up any book, any magazine, or look at any video, that's all they do is sit and teach technique. I've seen 300-pound men talking about being knife fighters. That's like him talking to me about being a basketball player and me believing that. Knife fighting is the ability to move, to have athleticism, and to have the attributes. And you can't have that unless you have drills to develop them. And that's what we just saw here. Now stay with me. By now we've talked about single knife, double knife, long range, largo mano, close range, sombrada, hubud range. Obviously it's dawned on you, what about knife against empty hand? Knife against empty hand is not realistic. Knife against empty hand, it is probably 99% inevitable that you're going to get cut. So at best what we can do is we can prolong the inevitable, long enough perhaps for you to buy some time to run. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you exactly how you can do this in long range. And basically that's from low line kicking, keeping your arteries in, keeping your hands in, and trying to just take a few nerve shots on the hand. Hopefully this guy will overextend himself. You can land a good nerve shot just to get this guy to flinch long enough to run, or get a good groin shot or a kneecap shot. But that's about it. A little bit of low line kicking and a little bit of nerve hits to prolong the inevitable. And this is our whole session on knife against empty hand. Break. Now, right at that point, if that knife were a magic marker, you would see marks all over Dave that would be quite graphic. But again, all we're trying to do is just prolong it. When we're in close quarter, Dion, another way to feed, go ahead and feed, is all I'm doing is just feeling the energy of his knife. And this is, again, an energy drill. It's numerata. But I'm just sticking. The key is to stick to this knife and hold on as long as you can. Just grab something and hang on. This is the numerata end. So if you're in long range, you can move around, go for the eyes, shuffle into the groin. If you're in close range, you just try to stick to the knife as long as you can. And from doing this drill long enough, you'll get a little bit of sensitivity to prolong it, possibly for you to run. Other than that, that is the best shot you have, knife against empty hand. Now let's put it all together with the sparring. You're going to see all the different ranges. They're going to be out in largo mano range. They're going to break in arbitrarily. They'll be in sombrada range. They may end up in a clinch position in hubud. You'll see elbows when you see them. Low line kicking. If there's a foot sweep in there, you'll see it. But this is what the sparring looks like. We want you to wait to this point until you've gone through the entire tape. You want to work the sombrada, the numerata, the hubud. You want to work these drills for at least a few months before you're ready to get at this level. And this level is just all-out sparring, doing anything you want. And keeping in mind that your knife is not your only weapon. You've got the rear hand, you've got your legs, you've got your other tools at your disposal. All right, guys, pair off, grab your partner. Ready? And go! Now in this final round, we're going to put it all together, and we're going to put the headgear on and allow them to go to the face. Okay, guys, put on the gear. While they're doing this, I want you to keep in mind this does not negate the other tools. They can use the rear hand, the elbows, the knees, the headbutts if it comes into play. Notice each time when that knife extends out, remember that's a cut on the face or on the neck. You're going to see how much these guys respect the blade. They're not just going in like a kickboxing match, but they're moving around out there. You'll feel the respect in their movement. All right, fellas, ready? Salute, and begin. Now, as you see here, they're making contact on the face. It's not like a boxing match. It's not happening every 2 seconds. But periodically, they're moving around, boom, and someone's stretching out and getting it. Obviously, that would be the end of the fight right there. So I want you to just keep this in mind. Play this over and over. Look in the slow motion. Notice how many times they're connecting. Look at the different ranges. Find when they went into sombrada range. Did they need to put that checking hand in? We're going to go one more round and let you take another look at another pair of guys. Okay, our next pair. Bob, Joe, run in. All right, fellas, you know what to do. Open your toes, move around. Okay, salute, and go. Right there. Now, if you notice that round, we went a full minute and a half, and there was not one clinch, not one shot where anything hit anything. This is respect of the knife. You've got to keep this in mind. This is not boxing gloves. We don't just come in and, I'll take that jab, I'll ride that cross. I'll just take that knife to the neck, ride it on the jugular. Okay? So this is the respect that they have for the blade. This is what I want you to notice. I want you to take note of that point right there. Now, at this juncture of the game, we're talking about knife sparring. And when we talk about knife sparring, I want you to actually picture what's going on. Your opponent has a knife in his hand, and he is wielding it at you. Look at the knives we have to deal with nowadays in the street. You're going to take this knife, and you're going to swing this, and you're going to let this guy swing it at you, at your face. There's a certain respect that happens when you're in that alley, and you see this blade, and you're moving around. You don't move like a kickboxer. You move like a cat. There's a certain reflexes that happen. All of a sudden, all the BS goes out the window. All of a sudden, all the upward blocks and the reverse punches and the disarming the knives in midair, all that crap goes out the window. And what will end up happening to you is simply your body will get split. You will get cut. I want you to just take a look at what this knife is going to do to a piece of meat. And that's what your arm's made out of, a piece of meat. Now, would you like to take that first shot? Okay, I want you to think about this when you're ever confronted with a knife. And remember, the first thing you do is run. And if you can't run, at least use your knife to defang your opponent's snake. Thank you very much.